right. So how to empower your team without losing control. This is what we're talking about this morning. My name's Melissa. I'm an executive coach and a management consultant, and I work with leaders. I work with managers at different levels as well as executives, and I help them really fine tune their communication, increase their influence, and enhance their executive presence so they can be respected across the organization without compromising themselves, without compromising their values, without compromising what matters most to them and their leadership style. And a big part of what helps people be respected is a leader that respect themselves and respect their own boundaries. Boundaries is talked about a lot, and yet we don't know how to speak them in a way that we are respected and we're being true and respectful to our boundaries and still being approachable and still maintaining our relationships. So I love bringing forward this idea of having boundaries as a bridge to work together better rather than walls that create separation between people. Because if we're talking about influence and we're talking about presence, that is a very human, relational based approach that we need to take. So joining me today in the conversation is someone who is part of my team, Kay. And Kay is joining us today in terms of providing the employee perspective.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kay. I'm Client Solutions Specialist at In Charge Coaching. And what that essentially means is that I help Melissa and In Charge Coaching to deliver value to leaders. I also lead the organization of public facing learning opportunities, such as this live to full day workshops and everything in between. But today, like Melissa mentioned, I am stepping out of the backstage and into the spotlight to share employee perspective.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, what it feels like to be on the receiving end of leadership. And I'm quite excited about today's topic, which is how to empower your team without losing control. It's a very interesting and very important topic. And I'll be chiming in with the view from the team side as Melissa walks you through this topic. So let's get into it.
Well, you talked about public facing learning opportunities, and I do want to highlight the fact that we have an upcoming masterclass, the Boundaries and Balance Masterclass. And this is a masterclass that we launched this year. We've already had about 300 people participate in this masterclass. The feedback that we've received has just been phenomenal. And so we're doing it again this month, September 16th at 12 p.m. Eastern. So if you're interested in this masterclass, you can drop masterclass in the comment and we'll reach out to you and let you know how you can save your seat. So it's a 2-hour event. It is completely free. It's your investment in yourself and your leadership. And part of why I chose, and I, with the collaboration of my team here, chose to focus on boundaries and balance this year is because of the challenges that leaders are facing. And we're really in unprecedented times. The expectations that leaders are facing today is above and beyond what we've seen in the past. The landscape of work is changing. I don't know if you've noticed, but it has been changing for a while. And then we had things really just speed up with the pandemic. And then in a post-pandemic world, things don't seem to work in the same way, right? Employees don't just show up and do because they're told, right? They have tasted something different. And now what they're asking for from leaders is different. So we have expectations coming from the organization, right? The expectations that are tied to your role as you step into a leadership role. We have expectations from the upline. your upline, whoever you're reporting to, has expectations as to how you're going to lead your team or your
Yeah.
teams, right? Multiple teams. And then we have the expectations from employees. And often those expectations are not aligned. There's tensions between what people expect at different levels,
Hmm.
which really leaves you stuck between, a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, Melissa, you mentioned the landscape of work is changing. And I'd always wonder, like, I know some part of it, but I'd always wonder that I'd ask you next time you say this, like, how do you think it's changing? Like, what has changed? I'd love to know.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting. There's a few things that have changed. So what people need hasn't changed. People need, if we just like simplify it, we all share five basic needs. We have a need for survival, a need for belonging, a need for power, a need for freedom, and a need for fun. And we have pictures of how we're going to satisfy those needs. And the
Yeah.
pictures that we have classically had of work was mainly to satisfy survival need.
Mm.
I have to work in order to survive. I have to work to earn money in order to live life, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so if we're operating from that perspective, and those are the pictures that we have of our mind of what is work to us, it's about satisfying the need for survival, then we're going in for the paycheck. We're going in for the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what we've had is over time, we've started to experience a different version of the workplace, one in which we can satisfy a need for belonging, one
Mm-hmm.
in which we can satisfy a need for power. Why do we want to get better? Why do we want to master things? Why do we want to step up in our career? Well, that's a need for power.
Yeah.
And power is not necessarily a bad thing. How we use power sometimes, right, creates
Yeah.
issues. But power in itself is not a bad thing. We all have that need. And then we have the need for freedom, where we've been experiencing a whole lot more freedom through remote work.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, I can be effective in my role without being there in person.
Mm. Yeah.
And that gives me a whole lot more autonomy. That actually gives me a lot of autonomy, a lot of power and freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a
And,
lot of sense. Yeah.
and we've been starting to have a bit more fun at work. So that's why it's been changing. It's because those pictures that we have in our mind of what is work to us has been
Mm-hmm.
evolving. And
Yeah.
now what we're requesting of work is evolving. We're requesting more autonomy. We're requesting more power over how we want to do our work, more mastery. We want to develop. We want to grow in our careers. We want to
Yeah.
feel like we belong. We're no longer willing to sacrifice that. We're no longer willing to show up for the paycheck and tolerate this lack of belonging, this disconnection. We want to feel connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, at a very, um, psychology level, that's what's happening. That's why the changes are happening.
Mm-hmm.
And how that's being felt now, it's all of these demands. People want these things, they're demanding these things. They want to be more involved. They want to have that freedom. They want. And now we're experiencing as leaders a lot of requests, a lot of desires, a lot and behavior that follows that makes it harder to manage.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other big change is the fact that we did go remote, and not every organization has gone back to in person.
Mm-hmm.
So not everyone has been able to make that transition back into the old way of being. And
Yeah.
so now we have a division, because we're satisfying a lot of power and freedom, but we
Mm.
have more disconnection from, the what we do, or disconnection from our role, disconnection from, the meaning of our work, disconnection from each other. So the belonging takes a hit, and the fun also takes a hit.
Mm. Yeah.
We're not having fun together, and if we're not having fun together, we're not learning. Fun and learning are interconnected. So that
Mm-hmm.
creates a lot of tension.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for explaining that so beautifully. Couldn't
Well,
agree
thank
more
you
with
for asking.
everything
I
you
wasn't expecting that question this morning.
Yeah, I just always wonder, and everything you said is so on point. Like, people do want more now. They just not want the paycheck, they want the culture, they want the belonging, they want the fun, freedom, autonomy. Everything is so important these days. Like, any missing piece could trigger you to just up and leave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely, hands down. I get to work with people at different levels of the organization, and so I will do a lot of coaching, when people are struggling. Performance coaching. I will also do career coaching where people are making transitions, development coaching, leadership development as people are in the process of transition into more, um, power and mastery. And then I do also exit interviews. And so I talk with people who are all in the midst of those transitions, and I ask them, what is it? What is it that they're leaving, or what is it that they're looking for? And it always comes down to, basically three things. It comes down to, I don't fit in,
Ooh, wow. Wow.
right? I don't feel like I'm part of this, and I
Mhm.
want to be a place where I feel connected. They want to feel like what they're doing makes a difference. So right
Mm.
now, it feels like I'm underutilized. And what I want is to really make a difference and
Mhm.
have an impact. Yes, that's the power piece. And then they'll say, I don't want micromanagement. I don't
Mm.
want to be told how to do my job. I actually know how to do my job well. I want the freedom to be able to engage and deliver
Mhm.
to my fullest capacity, which is a mixture of power
Yeah.
and freedom.
Yeah.
And so it all always comes back to these three really important needs that people have.
Wow, that's
Very rarely is about the money.
yeah.
Usually, if the money comes up, it's like, oh, and it would be nice to.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about this tension, and I'm going to bring up the micromanaging.
Mhm.
Because here we're talking about empowering. And one of the tensions that we talk about, many tensions that throws us off balance as leaders, but one of the tensions that's always at play here is the need that you have as a leader to give direction to employees. Right? We need to give them direction. We're responsible for an output, and we need to be able to deliver on that. And yet, at the same time, we need to empower them. And so
Mhm.
there is a hands on, hands off tension that
Yeah.
happens. And if you're too hands on, if you give too much direction,
Mhm.
we're coming off as micromanaging. And it's really easy to go from empowering to giving direction to then the employee seeing it as micromanaging. Not that you want to be, not that it's your intention, and you might not even be micromanaging at all, but it's being received and it's being experienced as that. And then
Yeah.
on the other side, if you know, take your hands off and you go, okay, well, I'm just going to let you shine and do everything. And you step not just back, but you step away. At that point, we're giving a lot of freedom and power, but we're not necessarily giving them what they need in order to leverage that power and freedom.
Yeah.
So great, I have all of this space that I can work and thrive, and yet I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's expected of me. I don't know what success looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a roadmap. I don't have a vision. I don't have goals, right? These are the things that employees will tell me. So we need to have enough direction and yet still empower people with freedom and power.
Mm.
What is empower? To give power.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
much power do we give? How much direction do we give? And it does really feel like a teeter-totter, right? We're bringing these two pieces into balance, and that balance looks a little different for each team and for
Mm-hmm.
each individual on that team. If
Yeah.
you look at everyone who's reporting to you, that teeter-totter is going to look a little bit different.
Yeah. I've definitely seen that teeter-totter wobble in real time, and it's actually not about choosing one over the other, like navigating versus empowering. It's I've had leaders in the past who were either all over my shoulder or completely MIA till something went completely wrong. But yeah, like you said, there needs to be a perfect balance, and I've learned that very beautifully in action working with you, because like you always mention, I've got the keys to my kingdom and you trust me with my work, but at the same time you don't just leave me floating in space. You give me direction and you guide me and you talk about the mission, the vision, everything, and
Mm-hmm.
then leave me with some autonomy to work on my own thing. So yeah.
So I never leave, I'm always present.
Yeah,
Right? You feel,
exactly, exactly.
so my intention is for you to feel my presence without interference.
Yeah. And it's very important. Like when you don't feel the presence, you don't feel connected to the team, to the company, to the mission. And it gets very difficult for you to work as an employee there without feeling, like you said, that feeling of belongingness is not there anymore. You're just like working for the paycheck sort of thing.
Yeah. And so, how do you bring something like that into balance? Well, boundaries. Boundaries is what helps us bring things into balance. What does that balance look like? And so there's, three things that I think about when I think about bringing the balance back. I think about what's mine to own as a leader. So, in my role, what do I own? What is my responsibility here? I
Hmm.
think about what's theirs. Going back to the keys to your kingdom, I have a vision of what that kingdom is in my mind, and I've shared that vision with you. So
Hmm.
you also know what
Yeah.
is within your kingdom, and that tells you what's yours to run with. And
Hmm.
then we look at where the edges are. So between what I'm owning and what you're owning, where's the edge and where's the overlap? There's usually some overlap there. And that's
Yeah.
where we work together. This is where
Hmm.
I'm going to get involved.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
what's outside of the overlap is what I'm not going to touch or interfere with.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the image that I want to bring in your mind. So, what is that person's kingdom? What is your kingdom? And where are the edges of that kingdom? And where do you share space? Where's the overlap? And what's going to become really important is to start communicating all of that and normalize talking about these things. What's
Mm-hmm.
mine? What's yours? Where's the overlap? And how are we going to work together?
Yeah.
Right? And I would call that boundaries. I would call that talking about our needs and talking about our boundaries. Though it doesn't really feel like a wall, does it?
No, absolutely not. It feels like a bridge.
Yeah, it feels like a bridge. It feels like a coming together.
Absolutely.
It feels very respectful.
Yeah.
And it actually brings about, when we talk about and communicate boundaries in this way, it really creates a lot of safety. It creates
Mm-hmm.
clarity, it creates safety, it creates comfort, it creates great dialogue. It makes it really easy to work together. There's
Yeah.
less feelings, less resentment, less frustration.
Mm-hmm.
This micromanaging, goes out the window,
Yeah.
and it puts things back into balance for both you and the employee.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a total feeling of being in control. Like when you have that clarity about what's yours and what's your kingdom, what's their kingdom, where's the overlap, and how we're working together, as much as you're empowering and you're giving all of that kingdom to that person to take responsibility and ownership for, that could feel like a loss of control. And yet, when you have that clarity, you feel more in control of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
in control because you know what's going on, in control because you're able to have the key conversations
Yeah.
that allow you to be effective in your role.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm going to leave everyone with 4 reflection questions. Okay. So it is really important. These might be questions that you want to sit down with, that you want to journal on, that you want to capture your thoughts around. I would invite you to really take some time to think about this. Don't just rush through. And this is not like a checklist. Okay, I thought about that question, we're done. But really lean into it. And these are questions that for me are ongoing and I come back to very often. So, not a one and done, but something that's going to help support you and continue to help support you through as you're engaging in communicating boundaries and empowering others. So, first question, how am I willing to show up? As a leader, how am I willing to show up? And I want to underscore this word willing,
Oh.
right? How am I willing to show up? Not how I have to show up,
Mm-hmm.
not how I need to show up, but how I'm willing. And that is a want. How do I want to show up? What is the commitment I'm ready to? Do you feel the difference?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of
Feels.
power in that.
Yeah.
And now, in order for me to show up in that way, what am I willing to let go of?
That's
Ah.
wow.
This is where it becomes a
Yeah.
little uncomfortable. What am I willing to let go of?
It's hard.
Mhm. And the things that we're attached to can become a source of struggle. It can become a source of pain, right? It does throw us off balance when we're hanging on to something that we shouldn't be hanging on to. And those are the things that will get in the way of us showing up in the way that we want to show up as leaders. It will
Mm-hmm.
get in the way of being really able to empower others. So, what am I ready to let go of? What am I willing to let go of? Well, I'm willing to let go of being perfect.
Me
Right?
too.
I'm willing to let go of,
Mhm.
there's lots of things that I'm willing to let go of and
Yeah.
trust another person with.
Hmm. Yeah, you're right. The letting go isn't losing control, it's just trusting your team.
Yeah, it's trusting people.
Yeah.
And that can be difficult. It truly can be difficult. Don't underestimate the work that goes into the self-work that goes into trusting others.
Absolutely.
And from there, you can look at what are the actual bounds of your role. Once you've answered this question of how am I willing to show up and what am I willing to let go of, the bounds of your role, the landscape is going to start changing.
Hmm.
So, what is that landscape like now? Right? What does that look like? What is your kingdom? What is your role? How would you define success here?
Yeah.
And then you can start asking the questions around when it's time to step in versus when is it time to let go and let them grow, which is going to be empowering them. Without
Hmm.
leaving, you can't step away. You still have to be present. It's just
Hmm.
within that presence, what are you going to do? Are you going to step in or are you going to let go and let them grow? And
Yeah,
sometimes we need to step in,
absolutely.
right? Sometimes, Kay, you want me to step in and be a leader. When there is
Yeah.
danger, you want me to step in and say, this is what we're gonna go do. I'm gonna step in front and I'm going to lead the way
Yeah.
and create the direction, and then I'm gonna step back again. I'm gonna say, okay, I think we're set. I think we have a direction that we're going. How do we want to continue on this road? And that's where I'm letting go and letting you grow.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so think about what that means for you. And as you're going through these four really important questions, don't skip one. They're designed in this specific format for a reason. Go to the first question. How am I willing to show up? I'm going to just run through them a quick. How am I willing to show up? Then what am I willing to let go of so that I can show up in that way? What are the actual bounds of my role now as I see them? And when is it time to step in versus when is it time to let go and let them grow?
Hmm.
So I'm curious, Kay, for you as we're going through these questions. I'm sure the reflection is already starting. What
Yeah.
what's coming up for you? And please don't disclose anything,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not asking you to bare your soul on a live video, but what are some of the thoughts that are coming up?
For me, what am I willing to let go of? That one hit home because I do tend to cling on to things because I try to be perfect, and I care because I care and because I want to grow and be the best at my job. So even if something could be, you know, delegate it, or somebody else is ready to step up, or if I need help from someone, I'd I'd avoid that. So I had to train myself to release that without any sort of guilt. So that's why, like I mentioned, like letting go, I just realized that letting go isn't about losing control. It's just about trusting yourself, the people, to just do the work. And it's still a work in progress, but yeah, we'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So today we just talked about one tension that exists in every leadership role that throws you off balance, right? It's
Mhm.
tensions outside of you that's going to be
Yeah.
pulling on you because of your role. And that has the power to throw you off balance if you're not sure how to bring it into balance. And
Mhm.
there are many other tensions in play in our roles and that we're
Yeah.
responsible to bring into balance. That is part of the role. And there's the external balance that we're creating that affects the internal balance, and the internal balance affects the external balance.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're curious what all of that means, that's exactly what I'm going to be covering inside the Boundaries and Balance Masterclass. We're going to look at balance in a completely different way than what you've been typically exposed to. There is a reason why you're feeling off balance, and that's affecting your well being and your energy. And it's nothing to do with when you go home, when you stop working, if you're taking your breaks or not. That's not what makes the difference. That's not what's actually throwing you off balance. So there's something much deeper happening. And so I'm going to be able to walk you through and show you, and you're going to be able to identify what pieces are throwing you off balance. And then we're going to roll into the boundaries, what's going to help bring that balance back. There are different types of boundaries, and boundaries, aren't going to be time-based boundaries. What we're typically, lean into in our roles when we decide, hey, we need a boundary, we'll usually default to time boundaries. We'll start time blocking. We'll start saying, we're going to start taking breaks, start leaving at 5, all of these things. But if it's not a time-based root cause, a time-based solution is not going to solve the issue. And it's very rarely, it's helpful to have time-based boundaries, but it usually doesn't solve
Mm.
the issue. So I'm going to open up your world to the different types of boundaries that are going to help bring back balance. And we're going to explore what those boundaries might look like for you. So I'm actually going to walk you through a specific exercise so you can get a taste for yourself of what I do with my executive clients and how we identify the pieces that are going to make the difference. And then we're going to step into the communication piece. Okay. Once you become clear on what is needed, then you're actually going to need to communicate that with yourself and with others. And how that's communicated over time is going to make a difference in terms of being respected. Are you and your boundaries going to be respected? And there's a way that we can do that in a relational approach. So there's often stickiness when it comes to communicating boundaries because there's a belief that you're aware of or unaware of, but there's a belief that you're going to come off as mean, or it's going to have an impact on the relationship, or it's going to come off as harsh, right? And
Yeah.
there's going to be a relational repercussion to that. And yet there are ways that we can communicate boundaries that creates and nurtures the relationship. And that's what I want to show you. How to go from something that's going to be a wall, like a stop and a disconnection, into a way of communicating that's going to create a bridge and a reconnection. And that's actually going to nurture the relationship. So I'm excited. It's happening September 16th. If you want in, drop masterclass down below and I will reach out to you personally to get you all set up. Kay, what do people need to know about the masterclass?
So, well, like you said, it's happening next Tuesday, so just 1 week away. It's going to be happening at 12 p.m. EST, that's 1 p.m. Atlantic. And Melissa is giving away this whole toolbox of bonuses, which are well worth over $800, if I'm not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And over 300 leaders have joined us, and it has been a game changer for all of them. And the best part is that you can bring a friend, bring a colleague, because the experience is even better when it's shared. And when you register, by the way, is when you'll get the $835 worth of bonuses package for free.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, drop masterclass. And like Melissa said, she'll be reaching out to you personally.
All right. So we're all set and we'll see you next week. And drop me a note, drop me a comment. What are you taking away from today's conversation that was valuable to you? I'd love to hear what you're walking away with today. Have a beautiful Tuesday,
Yeah.
and I'll see you next week. Bye.